there's a way of doing that. The key here is for us all to realize this very fact. This is a very tangible prison we're in. There's nothing invisible about it. As soon as you start to get a feel of the tyranny that we're involved in here, the contracts that we've been coerced into making, under false pretenses, you can get to feel the bars, and you can get a sense of what it's going to take to bend them and get out. And so we all need to agree and come together and deal with this situation that is now out of control. We are in the hands of corporations. We are in the hands of corporate entities because of these contracts we have made, in some cases without our knowledge. Now, what I would advise you do is stop contracting. Do not contract with the government. Do not contract with anyone that you feel might be taking too much information from you. And when you're talking to the police and you give them your name and your date of birth, that's a contract. That's you agreeing to a contract with the police. These mortgages that we're signing up for, you're talking about binding yourself to something for the rest of your life. So we need to leave the corporation. Give up your national insurance number. Give up your driver's license. Give up your marriage licenses. Yes, you're going to lose the benefits. You're going to lose your dole. You're going to lose your child benefit. But it's time we stood on our own 2 feet again. If you need a guardian, if you need the government to look after you and change your nappy for you, then fine, there's nothing wrong with that. No one's going to force you to change your lifestyle. But if you're complaining about the situation that we're in right now, this prison without bars that we're in right now, this is what's causing it. And if you think government's going to solve your problems, get after it. Go and vote 3 times in the next election if you think government can save you. Government's not your solution. Government's your problem. I would just as soon that I don't pay those 19 taxes and that the government butt out of my life, and if I want something, I'll provide it for myself. Now, you can complain about the People's Republic of London till hell freezes over. But the solution to your problem is not more government, it's less government. And the way you get government out of your life is to drop out of Social Security, drop out of the licenses. Now, I know somebody's going to write me a little email saying, that's all very well and good for you, Mr. Anti-Terrorist, but I need my driver's license because I've got to get from suburbia into London. How am I going to live without a marriage license? Since how my wife won't hear about it and she'll probably divorce me. I've got to have a business license because I've got to make some money. And I've got to have a national insurance number because that's how I borrow money from the bank. There's 55 reasons why not. Why you can't do this. And I'm not suggesting that you change your lifestyle. I'm just here to tell you this is what's causing your problem. And if you want to fix it, then you've got to get after it. If you don't, fine, sit back, ride the back of the bus and shut up. See, people are complaining about having to ride the back of the bus. But has it ever occurred to you just to get off the bus and go and buy your own? The bottom line here is that when America goes insolvent and it can't pay its debts, you are going to be sold to the Ethiopians, the Libyans and the Egyptians for your debt. Now that's why I suggest that you get the hell out of Dodge while you still can. Now I feel a little bit like we're on the Titanic. Fortunately, for all of us, there's little time to get off this ship. And it's time to get off this ship when it stops in Ireland. Most people aren't going to get off at Ireland. They're going to carry on to New York thinking they're on a luxury cruise, on the luxury liner Titanic. So I'm telling you now in advance, that's what's going to happen. You need to take action. You need to get off the ship. The next stop is the bottom of the ocean, the bottom of the Atlantic. And I'm telling you, that's where we're headed. We're headed to the bottom of the Atlantic on the Titanic, and there's not going to be a vast majority of people getting off this thing. You see, the bright spot in all of this, if we ever wake up, and most of us won't, there is a solution to this, but it's going to be based on individual initiative. If we ever wake up and say to ourselves, well, I would like to trade in all of my privileges and franchises just for plain, pure freedom of choice. We can do that. We can still do that in the United States and England. I suspect you can do the same thing in Australia, New Zealand, France. They're all Anglo-Saxon countries. My understanding so far is that one of the ways out of this is the contract clause, because you cannot be party to any contract that you did not volunteer into or that you had no knowledge of. So for instance, the contract that is your national insurance number, I'm pretty sure that none of you at the age of 18 knew you were signing a contract, an adhesion contract that would bind you to their regulations for the rest of your life. Did you know that? I'm pretty sure you didn't. Did you know that you weren't obliged to apply for a driver's license? Did you know that you were not obliged to register your children? But you assumed that you were obliged because of the wording they used. You can't just turn up at the DVLA and throw your license at them and say, I'm not using this anymore, I'm going to drive without it, because you'll be in a lot of trouble. You can't just turn up at the Social Security office and say, I don't want to do this anymore, please free me from my obligation. You can't just turn up at the registrar's office and say, I'd like my child back, please, because they'll look at you like you're from Mars. There's a very particular process you have to go through to extricate yourself from maritime admiralty jurisdiction. Now, this is a massive, very intricate subject, and I couldn't possibly cover it all, even in 3 blocks of 10 minutes. But I was hoping to paint you a broad picture and get you intrigued enough to look at the other links that I will provide for you at the end here. I will provide you with some videos that will explain the situation and make it more accessible to you. Firstly, go to a site called sendnomoney.com. Get to the home page and scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll find some hidden files, some hidden MP3 files. Listen to those, particularly 2. One is called Gary, This Is Kevin, and another one is called Collapsing the Trust. You need to listen to those very carefully and you'll find a lot of information in there that will help you extricate yourself from admiralty jurisdiction. Now, it's going to take a lot of courage and it's going to take a lot of resourcefulness and responsibility on your part, because essentially what you're doing is you're stripping away all of your benefits. So if you are on the dole, you can't do this. If you are on the dole and you have the resources to be able to look after yourself, then you can. But essentially, if you are under the government's wing and you're quite comfortable, no one's going to force you to leave. But if you want to get government out of your hair, this is the way to do it. So listen to those 2 files. Then you want to go to a site called thinkfree.ca, where Robert Arthur Menard has created a graphic novel that will explain this whole situation to you in very, very graphic details and will make it very accessible to you. He's charging for it, but of course this is very valuable information, so there's no reason why not. And he's not charging you a great deal, but it will certainly be well worth every penny you spend. He's a very open, honest guy, and he will answer your questions as long as they're intelligent questions. Now, you need to understand what a person is. As Robert Arthur Menard and Russell Perisky and Jordan Maxwell will tell you, you are not a person. You have a person. A person is attached to you by virtue of these contracts. And it's this person that the police are acting upon. They're not acting upon you, the flesh and blood, human being, man on the land. They're operating on this legal fiction called a person. A legal fiction, in other words, it doesn't exist in reality, cannot contract with a flesh and blood human being. So what they do is they pull you into their arena, into this fictional arena of contracting, of business and commerce, by creating a person and attaching it to you. And they do that by virtue of your birth certificate. So when you're registered, a person is created, a legal fiction. And what the police do, for instance, when they're talking to you, is they try to create joinder between you and your person by asking you for your name and your date of birth. Without your name and your date of birth, they have no way of linking you to this legal fiction. Without your signature under your name in block capitals, a contract does not apply to you. And so that is why you'll see on any legal paperwork or anything that comes to you from the government or a corporation, your name is always in block capitals. That is not you, that is your person. That is something that you use, it is something that you have, it is not you. It is something that exists entirely outside of yourself. It is a legal fiction. You need to understand the words that they're using to dominate and control us. And the way you'll do that is by watching Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception, The Occult of Commerce, The Magnificent Deception, and by listening to those MP3 files that you'll find on sendnomoney.com. Now, you need to have all of your boxes in a line here. You need to make sure that you do this process perfectly. It is not difficult when you have the right information, but there's no reason why you and I and everyone else can't do it. I'm in Britain, so I'm still researching the matter as it applies to this country, but I'm fully aware that in the States and in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, it's perfectly possible. Now, if any of you big-brained fellas out there know anything about how to do the process here in the UK, do get in touch with me and let me know. I think it's absolutely essential that we get this information out there and free as many responsible people as we can before this ship goes down, this ship under Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction. Please take the time to rate and comment on this video. Thanks for listening.